Okay, we were talking, we are talking about perfect competition. And we're not going to talk about the characteristics of perfect competition here so much as we're going to, isn't that a beautiful vertical line? Ooh, let me see if I can get a better marker here. Let's try this. Not too bad. Okay, so perfect competition. We have a situation where there are actually two markets. One for the firm, which is the main one we look at, and there's the one for the market. So the firm's output is included in a broader supply and demand curve. And that's the entire market. Then the market decides the price, and where that price equilibrium is, then that is the price that the firm is stuck with. The firm has no market power, and so it has to take that price no matter what that price is. So that price, because it's a horizontal line, is also marginal revenue. And remember, the general rule for profit maximization is going to be marginal, the quantity where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, okay? So just remember that. That will give you your highest possible profit. It might not give you profit, but that's the best you can do. So I'm going to have dollars on this and quantity produced over here, and the Nike swoosh, we're going to call that's the marginal cost. And let's see, we're going to have a profit. So I'm going to have average total cost here, and average variable cost. That's not drawn super well, but hang on, I need to close the door a little better. I don't know if you can hear all that noise. I think we'll just leave the door cracked open a little bit. It's after 5. Should be quieting down out there. Okay, so we have marginal cost, average total cost, average variable cost, which should be a nice little swoosh, not swoosh, but a nice little curve that has its low point there. That looks better. Anyway, what we're going to look at now is where the quantity should be. And remember the rule. Oh, thank you very much. I'm filming. Where the quantity should be. That's why I had the door open. I was expecting something to be delivered. Okay. The quantity should be where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, just like I wrote over there a minute ago. At that point, that will be basically the right-hand side of all these rectangles. And so our quantity is going to be here, and our price is going to be there. And remember when we did our chart, and we had quantity, and we had fixed cost, and we had total variable cost, and total cost, and then we had average fixed cost, and average variable cost, and average total cost, and marginal cost. You remember that? And if we had some kind of a number here that was a variable cost, and we wanted to find an average cost, we had to take the total variable cost, divide it by the quantity to get the average cost. Do you remember that? Well, on these boards, we have the average costs. So since we have the average costs, we need to work it backwards if we have an average cost, we multiply by the quantities to get the variable costs. So that's what we're doing here. So, for example, in this situation, let's put some numbers up here. To make it easy, 10 and 10, okay? And so let's find total revenue. And we need to answer some questions, don't we? Price, quantity. I don't know if you can see over that far. I'm going to erase this. And I'm not sure you could see what I was... Sorry if it was off the screen. I think this is the top of your screen and I was writing up there. So I'm just going to put here price equals quantity equals total revenue equals total cost equals total variable cost equals total fixed cost equals profit or loss equals and shutdown. Okay, so those are things we need to answer. So the price is going to be 10. The quantity is going to be 10. Total revenue is the price times the quantity. So the height of the price times the quantity will give us an area that is 10 times 10. So the total revenue, the totals are, it's just like on your cost, when you did that cost matrix. And you had the averages divided by the quantities, gave you the totals, and if you had excuse me, I said that backwards. If you had the totals divided by the quantity, gives you the averages, and if you have the averages times the quantity, it gives you the totals. Well, in this case, we have averages times the quantity, everything's times the quantity, and all of the totals are shown as the areas of these rectangles. So in this case, 10 times 10 is the total revenue, which is 100, right? And total cost, well, we would have to go to the average total cost, and at this quantity, if I did this horizontally, which should I say that is? 7.5? I'll say it's 7 to make it easier to compute. So we would say that the average is this much. And if we want the total, we have to multiply the average times the quantity, just like in the chart. Take that average, multiply it times the quantity, you get the total, just like the chart. So we have an average is 7 high times quantity here, and so our total is going to be the area of that rectangle, 7 times 10. Remember the area of the rectangle? Height times width, 7 times 10, or 70. So, do we have a profit or a loss? Our total revenue was 10 times 10, 100. Our total costs are 7 times 10, 70. Profit or loss? More revenue than cost, 30, right? So it's a profit, and you can write out profit. I just don't have room here. Profit of 30. Okay? Total variable cost. Well, we would have to go to the average variable curve, cost curve, at the quantity, and it would be that high. So what do I say that is? 6. So we'll say that 6 tall is the average variable cost times quantity. So we take the average times the quantity, gives us the total, right? So here's the quantity. Average tall times quantity wide gives us this rectangle. 60 times 10. 60. Okay? And that was 6 times 10. Why would we be interested in this? Because we want to find total fixed cost. And we can do that 2 ways. We can say the height between the two at this quantity, which will be the same height over here, a difference of 1, right? 7 minus 6 is 1, times 10 means that our fixed cost, let me see, our fixed cost, our total fixed cost is going to be this area at the height between these curves, right? That's the total fixed cost. So 1 times 10, or 10. Or we could take total cost minus total variable cost to get total fixed cost. So we could take 70 minus 60, and we'd get 10. Okay? So we're making a profit of 30. Should we shut down? Should we shut down? Making a profit. No. Okay? No. Oh, I didn't ask one more question. Could this be the long run? No. So the answer is no to both of those. The reason is, if you're making a profit, other people can come into this market because there's no barriers. They can come in and they can steal your profits by just coming in and competing. And when they do, let's see, here's the supply out there. People, more companies would come in, right? So what happens? More companies come in, supply moves out. What happened to the price? The price falls, and it'll eventually fall to where everybody that's in the market will just be making enough money to stay in business, and we call that zero economic costs. Okay? So right now, you're making economic profits, which means in the long run, people are going to gear up, start their own factories, and come in and compete. Got it? Okay. I'll make sure we're still doing okay, still have a battery, still recording. Let's see how high up you can see. You can't see everything I wrote. Okay. Okay, this one, now here's our price, which is our marginal revenue. Here's marginal cost. Here's average total cost. Here's average variable cost. Okay? So, again, I'll ask you these questions. Let's see how much is showing on the screen. Okay, so I can put stuff in right around in here about these levels. So price, quantity, total revenue. We'll start with those. Okay, so price. Well, it's going to be here, which I'm going to call this one 6 this time. Okay, and where they cross MC and MR, where they cross that is going to be our quantity, which this time is going to be 4. And also, we're going to extend that straight up. That's not too bad. And where it crosses these things, where the quantity crossed that, should be the right-hand side of all of our rectangles, because quantity is always the thing we multiply by. Okay. And of course that should have been straighter up and down. Yeah. All right. In this case, price is 6, quantity is 4, total revenue is 6 times 4. Okay? So, what have we got here? I'm going to get rid of these just because we need space. Okay? Total cost. Well, we're going to have to find average total cost. So we're going to have to go all the way up to here at that same point and over, which that looks like about 13, doesn't it? I'm going to say it's 12. 12 tall is the average. So if you have an average, what we want is the total. What do? You take the average, you multiply it times the quantity, and that gives you the total, just like in the chart. So everything you learned about that chart still works. Except now we find that when you find the total, it actually is an area of a rectangle. So it's average tall times quantity gives you total as an area, like that. Total revenue was this big, because it was 6 times 4. Total cost is this tall, it's 12 times 4. So 12 times 4 is what, 48? Okay, so basically we had total